My name is Ricardo Vinuesa. I'm an associate professor of aerospace engineering at the University of Michigan. I just came to the US after many years in Sweden, in Europe. And even if my main area is in aerospace engineering, I've also done quite some work on policy and AI for sustainability policy. So that's going to be my main focus today. So let me start by motivating this work. This is now probably 7, 8 years ago that I was having lunch with a colleague, and we were asking the question because I work with AI and these related tools, and he was working with sustainability. So we're wondering really if there was any study where the potential of AI for the sustainable development goals had been assessed. And at that time, we didn't know of any study that did that. This is 2017, 18. So we decided to do it ourselves. We put together a multidisciplinary group of people that led to this work in Nature Communications published in 2020, which is entitled The Role of Artificial Intelligence in Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And that really, cover a very broad range of experts, 5 women, 5 men from all the continents working on AI, engineering, biodiversity, sustainability, ethics, economy, name it. All areas we covered with this fantastic group that it was a real pleasure to work with. So essentially what we did was to first divide the 17 goals into 3 categories, society, economy, and environment. This is a pretty standard classification, for example, by the Stockholm Resilience Center. But that allows us to look at the results a bit more globally. And what they did was to really have this series of workshops over a course of 2 years where we had for each of the targets, not the SDGs, but the targets, the 179 targets, we had few experts that would review the literature and assess whether there was evidence for AI impacting positively or negative that particular target. So in this example, Sami and Simone were the experts that would review each of the targets, and Yolanda and myself would be reviewers. And the idea is that the reviewers would come with a complementary expertise and they would act as a red team. So our job as reviewers was to poke holes in their argumentation, discuss and iterate in such a way that we came up with this very, very complete list. So in the supplementary material of this article, you can find a very long list where for the 169 targets, you can find, first of all, whether AI is an enabler or an inhibitor or none or both of that particular target, a number of references, and also the reasoning. So we have a very, very complete documentary material together with this paper. And overall, the results show that 79% of the targets can be positively affected by AI and 35% can be negatively affected by AI, which in principle throws a positive message, although of course we should be aware of the cascading effects. There can be one single target that is coupled with many others. Keep in mind that the SDG agenda is an interconnected system, which eventually leads to very negative consequences. So a higher positive does not mean necessarily that we should not be aware of the negatives. The environment is the area where, interestingly, there was a highest positive potential of AI, and the society the one with a more negative impact. So that's something to be aware of. And in this figure, what we show is on the left for each of the SDGs, the percentage of targets that can be positively affected by AI, and on the right, the percentage of targets that can be negatively affected by AI. So you can really see this figure summarizes the whole analysis, like this over 2 years of workshops and discussions and work. And you can see that there are 2 lines here, one that is darker, one that is lighter. In the darker line, we take into account the strength of the evidence. So we basically classified all our hundreds and hundreds of references into 4 categories where A type of references have the strongest evidence and they're easiest to generalize. They will have a weighting factor of 1, and all the way down to the types of references here at the bottom, which are more speculative or harder to apply. And those ones will have a weighting factor of 0.25. So by taking into account the weighting factors, we take these darker results, this darker color that you can see here. And this is interesting because if we compare the reduction of the light versus the dark color, we can actually understand what areas constitute current gaps. If we look at the negatives, there's a huge reduction in the environment and the society. So the negative effects of AI on the environment and the society were perhaps a bit more speculative, and there's more research needed in these areas. And when it comes to the economy, the positive effects of AI on the economy were also more speculative. So there is also more work perhaps needed in this particular area. And remember, this study is now almost 6 years old, and many of these things that we're claiming them, they're still current nowadays. So I think that of course there's some developments with generative AI, but many of the trends that we already pinpointed then are still relevant nowadays. In order to not take too much time, one last note on interpretability. We have a commentary piece in Nature Machine Intelligence where we basically argue that if you're going to use AI systems for sustainability, we need to have them deployed as being interpretable systems. And interpretability, not in the sense of just saliency maps or feature attribution methods, but rather coming up with equations that can really reconstruct the performance of these deep learning systems. And there's quite some work in terms of inductive biases, generative programming, symbolic regression that is helping in this context. One example is this work where a classical application of AI to tackle poverty is to use computer vision tools to analyze satellite images, and that would give you a prediction of the predicted consumption, which is given in dollars per capita and per day. But of course, with interpretability methods, we could come up with an equation that is connecting the economical prediction with the amount of night light in the pictures, the amount of roads or the distance to the biggest cities, in such a way that the models are more interpretable. And not only that, that we would be able to predict future trends of poverty in this particular case. So there is quite some potential, and I would say there's a big need of deploying interpretability when we are using these deep learning methods for sustainability. So there is, to summarize, AI can help achieve 79% of the targets. It can inhibit 35%. There is a very much needed global debate, and there is great potential for policy development. Some of our follow-up work since then has relied on using large language models to develop new policy agendas together with UNESCO and the United Nations and the European Parliament. So really trying to streamline the current SDG agenda and push that forward and beyond 2030. So that's all I have for today. I wanted to keep it short. I'll be happy to take your questions.